Well, hello there. This is Virtuals the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today, I've got a really interesting game where my opponent and I duke it out, have a rumble in the middle game and the end game. And in these games, I'll go through some of my thinking and some of the potential sort of tactical ideas that I had. I'm not saying they're necessarily all good ideas, but they worked for me. So I've got the black pieces in this game, and my opponent led with the bishop's opening. So e4, e5, bishop c4. Now, I won't go through this very quickly, but against the bishop's opening, I usually play the queen's knight, potentially hoping that they'll, transform back into an Italian. Now, they try to resist doing that. The two knights approach, they keep trying to resist, and now the bishop out, and of course, we've now transitioned basically back into a two knights Italian, and I'm generally very familiar here, and I'm happy with it. The reason I do this is that the bishop's opening can be quite tricky and quite trappy. And by playing this two knights approach, trying to get it back into basically an Italian, it kind of stops most of the traps in the bishop's opening. Here, h6, they short castles. I decide to delay short casting for a bit, potentially maybe castle either side, see what happens. They develop the other knight. And the first part, after they short castled, this is one of my tactical ideas in the early middle game. Basically, I'm asking white to trade bishops. Firstly, their light square bishop is potentially quite strong, staring at the f7 pawn. Potentially, if I want to castle this side or the other side. So I can address it very directly by asking for a trade. If they do trade, then I get to potentially have a semi-open f-file, which then sort of, tells me, gives me a good rationale for castling onto the kingside. Now, they decide to pull back, play conservatively, but that means they had to move their bishop twice. And here, another very provocative move, knight forward. This is not the most accurate move. However, it's certainly not bad, still mostly basically equal. And basically what I'm hoping for is for captures, captures. That's what I'm looking for. And that's what happens. Captures, captures, and now they decide to trade bishops as well. Captures, captures, and here I basically get what I was looking for. So they play that move as well, that's fine, I leave it, I short castles, and here I've got the semi-open f-file. Yes, I've got doubled e-pawns, but I've got this big, strong center of pawns, and, potentially opening up with, pieces to attack the white king. So all good. They take, I take back with an attack on the knight. Knight jumps back, obviously with an attack, push forward, all pretty good for me. And I think here, black and white, if you look here, we're basically equal. Basically equal, maybe a little bit easier to play for black. Here, they jam their f-pawn forward. f4, potentially quite a good move. Here, I have a consideration of what am I going to do here. And after actually thinking for quite a bit, we're now sort of in the middle game, out of the opening. I was wondering, knight h5 maybe, but maybe I should develop my queen, connect my rooks. I eventually decide to play queen e7. Now that was perfectly okay. Stockfish thinks that knight to h5 here was actually a bit better. They take. In my mind, I knew that taking with the pawn, which makes sense because I undouble my d-pawns, probably good for me, 2 squares away from the knight, constrain the knight's movements, but I decided to take with the queen. I knew this was suboptimal, but I thought, creeping forward with the queen, bringing it in potentially into the attack, maybe I could make it work. Stockfish disagrees, calls this a straight up mistake, in fact, plus 1.4. Now, white now decides to play aggressively and bring their knight forward. You can see that's a mistake. And in fact, it goes back to equalities, very slight advantage to black. And the reason for that is I potentially have knight captures here and, pretty much they can't take back. Because if they take back, let's say they do this, then I can take and, basically we end up trading the knight and I end up being a pawn up. So that's what I should have done. but I didn't see. Here, I didn't recognize a looming threat, which was the whole idea of their knight advance, which is that there is a potential fork of my queen and rook. Really good tactical idea. I simply didn't see it. I was caught up in a little bit of tunnel vision. I thought, look, it wouldn't be good if I got my knight to the e3 squares. I thought, look, maybe here, then here. Well, to do that, then I need to get rid of potentially that pawn. So I thought, look, maybe the c6 pawn and then push the other pawn, then trades, and I could then get to this square. So that's what I was thinking. I had a bit of tunnel vision, and so I decided to play c6. Straight up blunder, plus 3.5, and of course, white gallops forward with their knight, knight g6, and I immediately saw, oh no, I have blundered, I've made a mistake. Now here, what did I do? Well, firstly, I didn't resign, and I was still pretty happy to play on. So we need to accept that that rook is lost. That rook is lost. Don't try to save it. It is gone. And so I decided to force white to make that move. Okay, they have to make that take. And here I can potentially, move my queen to a better position here with a potential check. So here they take. That's fine. And here I give a check. Force the king to the corner, away from the defense there. And of course, here I take back with the rook. Now, let's see what's happened. I thought here I was potentially okay. Now, Stockfish will say that I am absolutely not okay, that white is ahead. They've traded a knight for a rook. However, that knight was their most active piece. My rook, which was on f8, has now been replaced with my other rook. And this rook on a8 wasn't activated, wasn't really doing anything. White still has their rook on a1. So if I act quickly, if I do something aggressive, create threats, it's quite possible that this difference material, that white being up 2 points of material, will not be felt. So my tactic here now is to try to create as many threats as possible and try to make sure that white's material advantage cannot be felt. And this is particularly the case because rooks tend to get a bit hemmed in when there are so many pawns left on the board. We each still have 7 pawns each, while the knight is often very good in cramped positions. So let's see what happens. So they try to trade queens. Now, obviously, I don't want to trade queens. I bring the queen back. They move their king. Now, yep, that probably makes a bit of sense. That is pinned, but, they're all good defenses here. I decide to move my king out of the way. Again, they want to trade queens, and here they worked it out. I have to trade. So I force the trade, takes. And here, what I do is I now attack their rook, try to win a bit of tempo, try to develop these pawns as well. They move back, move the king back, provide sort of defense to both pieces. The king is an active piece. They now double up their rooks. Okay, so a little bit difficult. So I now push that pawn forward. And here the problem for white, of course, is that it's not entirely clear how they're going to push through with their rooks. These 7 pawns each hems in their movement. I move my rook up now. So potentially, allowing me to move my king further up and still providing defense on that rook. They try to break forward with a pawn. Makes a lot of sense. I defend, captures, and here they move their rooks out of a battery. Here I was having a think, look, potentially that is a problem for me, but if they're trying to form an attack, then I'm potentially okay. So I decide to play aggressively, create threats. Pawn to g4. What are they going to do? Potentially attacking, potentially it's a check, obviously attacking the rook. They're going to have to do something. This square is defended. There's a potential check coming here as well. They thought for quite a while, look, 14 minutes, all the way to under 13 minutes. They thought for a good while. I've been thinking a little bit longer than my opponent, and they move their rook to that position. Easy next move. Defend with h5. What are they going to do? They decide to take. And here I take with my knight, with check, force the king back. Now here, what I want to do is, we've got basically an equivalent number of pawns. Not very clear how they're going to break through with their rooks. Here, it looks a little bit scary potentially. Looks like maybe there'll be some ways of infiltrating. I'm hoping that I can get, white to potentially feel so uncomfortable that they might want to get rid of my pesky knight. So, firstly, move my king out of the G file so the knight is no longer pinned. They try to trade rooks, definitely not trading rooks. I move my rook to the C file, potentially a very nice infiltration here. And here, white decided to capture. So they had enough, they felt that they weren't making through, decided to trade. Maybe in their mind, they thought they were still winning. Captures, and now we enter an endgame. And it's a drawn endgame, 0-0-0, because we each have a rook. We each have, how many pawns left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns left. It's mostly, symmetrical. It looks like it's a draw. Let's see what happens. They push that pawn, makes sense. I now put my rook all the way to C2, cutting off their king. And now I have a potential advantage because tactically my rook is on the second rank, which means their king can't get activated. They try to trade. Nope. Here I thought, look, I'm probably happy to have a draw because I was losing before. Let's just draw. Check, block, back. Same tactic as before. They try again. Check again. In fact, here I actually offered my opponent a draw. My opponent here, however, decided they didn't want to draw. So they played King G2. Now this now gives me a potential advantage, a rook to D1 with an attack on that pawn. Now the interesting thing here is, at high depth, Stockfish calls this 0-0-0. But at lower depth, it gives black an advantage. What that means is, and it's very pertinent for how humans play, is that this position is easier to play for black. And this is the thing with a lot of these drawn positions in rook and pawn endgames, that one side, has a winning or drawing chance. The other side is more drawing and losing. And so in that position, in those games, even though a single position may technically be 0-0-0, one side has still an advantage because humans don't play perfectly, and when mistakes occur, it's more likely to go in one direction than the other. So they give a check. That's fine. Attack the rook. They take. That's fine. I take that pawn. They give a check. That's fine. Move up. I'm going to try to do something about that pawn. Try to get rid of that passed pawn, and also bring my king up to support my pawns to promote. So king forward. They take. That's fine. Check. King back. King once again stuck on the back rank. I thought about here. What should I do? King forward. Try to get rid of their passed pawns. They take, and you can see that was a mistake. And here, at higher depth, black is not just slightly better, it's minus 6.6. In fact, this was a mistake for white, because now I take, that's a passed pawn, and now these are technically passed pawns, but they're really far away from promoting. Well, this pawn is quite close to promoting, and the king is trapped on the back rank. So they push forward, that's fine. I decide to put my king here. You can see, interesting, that's a mistake. We're actually back to 0-0-0. But remember what I said? My mistakes leads to draws. Black mistakes leads to losses. And here, I've got quite a clever tactic, because if they don't do something, this is mate. This is a pattern. The king is trapped on the back rank by my king. So unless it does something, rook to the back rank will be checkmate. At the same time, I'm attacking their other pawn. Potentially, I can end up with 2 passed pawns. So they give a check. Makes sense. Allows me to capture. They push forward. That's fine. Let's take. So now I've got 2 passed pawns versus their 1. They push forward again. That was the right move. King back. always keeping an eye out. They push forward again. That's fine. But, with just the rook here and the pawn, they can't promote. If they move, I take. If they try to bring that to support promotion, I take. So it's a little bit difficult. And my king is behind one of my pawns. So here I push my pawn. And now white makes a blunder. That being said, it's a very natural move that they made. And, it's almost looks like that black is completely winning. I thought I was winning. Very interesting that Stockfish still thinks that this is a draw. They play rook d7. It's a blunder. Can you see why it's a blunder? Well, basically, my king blocks these squares. This pawn also blocks that square. There's a barrier in front of the white king. And remember what I said about that pattern? In this pattern, there is often a back rank mate, but it's sort of this invisible barrier by the kings and pawns. My opponent with the white pieces missed that, so rook b1, mate. Good game, GG. The big takeaway from this game is to make use of the relative compensations you have after making a mistake. In this game, I was able to convert my material disadvantage in the middle game into a rook and pawn endgame which was drawn, and then outplay my opponent for the win. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.